Hello, this is the School for the Highly Gifted beginning of the year campus data protocol and Q1 data meeting. So I just wanted to start with going through some of the snapshots. They are also loaded in the Google Drive, but I thought it would be easier just to put them all into one presentation. So this is 3rd through 5th grade, and it's for Q1, but for our school, we use MAP testing, so we don't have 9 weeks tests in the first 9 weeks. So this is really a baseline from our beginning of year MAP testing, and it was given in like the 3rd week of school, so not a lot of instructional time had passed. So this is really a beginning of the year baseline for us. So where do these numbers come from? The MAP test gives us a star projection of mastery that has been pretty spot on for the last 5 years, so we rely upon that heavily. And so basically we're able to project out the same way that the 9 weeks test would project out on where the students are going to be at the end of the year. So the percentages here are listed, and again, they're pretty spot on as far as approaches, meets, and masters is concerned. The total number of testers are here on the side, as well as the teacher's name, since by and large we have one teacher per grade level. That is, we can just put both teacher and grade level view in one form. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about meets and exceeds target because it is different for us. It's a harder bar for us to reach than using the quarter data or star data. So when you're talking about meeting target and exceeding target on an achievement test such as STAR, that is meaning that, you know, if you made mastery the year before, you continue to make mastery, or you go from meets to mastery, but you're still going from on grade level in 4th grade to on grade level in 5th grade. For the MAP test, this target is actually meeting their growth goal, which can be well above and beyond the grade level piece. So as a general rule, meeting target and exceeding target in MAP is a much more difficult process than meeting and exceeding target in STAR. So we found that if we are looking at getting that year's worth of growth the way that MAP measures it, then we are well exceeding what STAR's growth would be. So if those numbers look low in some areas, they are generally higher in our STAR data. Also, we have a MAP test for reading, math, writing, and science, but the writing test does not have a projection. They didn't do a study to map that out, and so I just use percentiles to do that. So the 50th percentile is the average student, so that's the mean, and so that's where I put a passing rate. So if they were below average, below the 50th percentile, then I made that the did not pass category. If they were in the 50th to 69th percentile, I made that approaching. 70th to 89th percentile meets, and 90th percentile and above at masters, just to kind of give us a ballpark idea of where that projection would be if they were to have done a mapping study. So that gets us pretty close to where we need to be, and the numbers play out when you compare that to our STAR performance as well. Science does have a projection, and so those are done with the NWEA mapping study. So here we have, of course, we have 6th and 7th this year. Another piece to note on this is that the algebra kids are mixed into these math results. So when we go into MAP and we look at the individual reports, I can tell which students took which test, but on just for our overall percentages, they're mixed in. So we have some 6th graders taking this that are in 6th grade pre-AP math, as well as some of our 6th graders in algebra, so their numbers are mixed in that. And then here in our 7th grade, this includes students that are taking pre-AP 7th grade math, students that are taking 7th grade Algebra 1 as 7th graders, and students that are taking geometry as 7th graders, which will then take the 7th grade STAR. And so that's all kind of mixed up in this piece here. And then again, writing, I use the percentiles to give us a rough estimate of mastery since we don't have a formal study mapping that out. So what does that look like as far as our letter grades? We, in mathematics, have a 92, which puts us in the A category by a surplus of about 30 points. 93 for reading, again, another surplus of around 30 points. Our single subjects are our relatively weaker areas, and we have an 80 in writing, putting us still at an A with just 20-point surplus. And then science also at an 80 with a 20-point surplus, putting us at an A. So that is just a quick look at the snapshots, but now I wanted to go into kind of our campus data protocol and the way we run things here. It's very cyclical, and we go through the cycle 3 times a year. So it starts out with our map testing, and we've taken our first cycle. We've taken our beginning of year map test. That's what that data we just looked at was based off of. Then we roll into data analysis, followed by our ILP parent meetings. Then we roll into student goal setting, and finally action plans and individualized instruction before we roll back into map testing. And we'll have a mid-year. We'll roll through the cycle again, and we'll have an end of year. And we'll roll through the cycle again. So just kind of break that down into its smaller components. The map testing part of the cycle. Map test covers 4 content areas. There are 3 testing windows, beginning, middle, and end of year. It's all online, and it's adaptively branched, which means as students get questions correct, the questions will get harder. As they miss questions, the questions will get easier, and it goes up and down until they're hitting that 50% wrong, 50% right, so that it identifies their Goldilocks zone or the zone of proximal development and tells our teachers where the instruction needs to take place. There's not a ceiling on the test. It goes all the way through 12th grade. And the scores scale from year to year. It's not like on STAR where you have to have a conversion chart to map out your scale scores and see growth. The scale is like a ruler. It's incremental all the way from K through 12. And so 3 points of growth on a MAP score, on a RIT score in first grade is the same as 3 points in growth in 10th grade. It's normed from using a national grouping of students. It's got a huge norming database. And there are 2 sets of norms. They norm for achievement, so marking their achievement in percentiles, as well as their growth. And again, that growth is a normed growth. So what it does is it says students that make this score in this grade level generally, over all this population, grow an average of so many points. And so that becomes the minimum expectation if they grow that many points. So if they grow less than that, then they are below average in their growth, so they're not meeting their growth goals. They're growing less than a year. And then if they grow more than that, obviously they're exceeding that. So it's not a matter of maintaining achievement from one year to another like STAR. It's truly looking at how kids grow nationwide and making sure that they grow as much or more than that nationwide standard. The studies have been done for STAR, ACT, and SAT, and so those results give us projections for those 3 tests, and then it gives us actionable data. It gives us things that we can actually use to put instruction in front of the kids. So the next step is the data analysis step, and so it is a combination for us of very individualized data collections in a very authentic manner, which is I've taken some snapshots of some of my teachers' data composition books and data spirals, and I really encourage data that they use, that they mark up, that they annotate, and not just filling in spreadsheets. And so this is what that piece looks like over here. And as far as the more formalized pieces, that's really at their fingertips at all times, and it drives this more anecdotal piece because it's really a powerful system. So I'm just going to show you 2 of the reports that we use deeply to go from the map data to the individualized unit level data, which is what you see over here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that website. So this is the MAP portal. This is what teachers are able to log into. And really there's 2 primary pieces that they use. And one of the most important pieces, in my opinion, is the learning profile. And so we are going to take a quick glance at that, and you'll see all of the data that's available, just the click of a button. I'm going to go in as upper level reading teacher. And you start by selecting a student. but you do not have to do this individually. Okay. So at a glance, I've got a lot of really powerful data here. So what we learned about this particular student, just by one quick glance, it's blue across the board. That means that he is projected to be at the mastery level in all 4 subject areas. So right away, I know that he's doing well as far as his achievement is concerned. Now I can take a quick look over here and I can see that he's achieving really well, but he's growing really slowly. And so that gives us information that we really need to work at where is his challenge level and make sure that we are pushing him beyond grade level in this is for mathematics right now. So he is considered a high achiever but a low grower in mathematics. So if we go over here, it gives us the individual instructional areas and his strengths and weaknesses. We can click here and actually test him on those individual areas once we've given him some instruction in small group, and so those things will be selected. And then we get data over time. So you can see over time, you can see that low growing, right? So the trajectory in general is an upward trajectory. He is growing, but it's not at the pace we'd like him to grow at. And so, but he has always stayed in this blue zone, which means he's never dipped out of the mastery level zone. So grade level expectations, not a problem. But if we want to continue to grow him at a steady rate, then we're going to have to push him out of his comfort zone in mathematics. And so that is just at a very quick glance what teachers can get across the board. Historical data going back 3 and 4 grade levels, as well as how they're growing and how they're achieving. And you can do that by subject area. So you can see, but in reading, the student is high growth, high achievement. His reading levels, and you can see he's a little more spotty, but again, staying in the master zone and continuing to go in the upward trajectory. You'll see here and here, that is summer slip. That's the end of the year to the beginning of the year. End of the year to beginning of the year. So we see summer slip in the students. That's something that we talk to the parents about, making sure that they're reading over the summer so that you don't see that slip. So that's one of the commonly used features in reports. Another one is the quadrant chart. This is how we identify students that need intervention. I'm going to pick a middle school class for this. So this is showing growth and achievement on an axis. I'm going to select just the reading, clean that up a little bit. It's showing both genders and all ethnicities. I can, let's go ahead and let's see what it looks like by gender breakdown. Looks like it's pretty evenly distributed by gender. What about ethnicity? Do we have any gaps? Also looks pretty evenly distributed by ethnicity. We have in this quadrant students that are achieving high but growing lower and growing slower than we would like. In this quadrant, we have students that are growing above average and achieving above average. That's where we want our students in these 2 quadrants here. So these are kids that we really need to push up into the green, and all the teachers have to do is hover over them and see who they are. And that data is all available to them down here as well. Last report that teachers use for instructional information is the learning continuum. The learning continuum breaks up the vertical and horizontal alignment into standards and allows our teachers to teach at their Goldilocks zone, their zone of proximal development, and identifies what those next level skills are. Let's go ahead and do a younger level math example. So if my teachers are working within a numerical representations and relationships unit, usually in the first 9 weeks, and they're about to go into a fraction unit, they can go into here and they can see the students that are at 191 to 200. Here they are. And here are the things that those students need to learn. Above is what they've mastered. Below is what they'll go to next. So here we have a group. A lot of students here. Probably would pull 2 groups for that. Another chunk of students here. A couple here. And 1 student all the way up here. This student will be a low grower unless we make sure that we go all the way into positive and negative rational numbers for him. And at his grade level, that's generally not done unless you have this type of data to guide your instruction. So that's the data analysis. Then we have ILP meetings with the parents. They're held 3 times a year. We look at map results. We discuss where they're placed. This is what it looks like. We have one for every child that we have in a large crate. And then we also identify areas of passion, social emotional strengths and needs. And then we do social emotional small group counseling as well. Students meet with each teacher to set their goals. That goal setting sheet's printed from NWEA, and many of the teachers also made a more in-depth goal setting form as well. They goal set with every content area teacher. Ignore the National Junior Honor Society text that I'm getting. And then goal sheets are collected and placed in the folders here, and they have them out during map testing. And as soon as the map testing is done, it gives them a score in their sub areas, and they can see whether or not they met their goals. More of the goal setting sheets here. It shows their current performance. It gives them a line for their projected, their 1 year's growth performance. They personalize their goal. The student wants to go a little higher because they were at 240 in the spring. They want to gain that summer slip ground back. It gives them their strengths and weaknesses, and they write in. Some of the students write in their own. This particular teacher writes it in for them because they've got another one in their journal, and that they have to actually come up with an action plan that will produce results. And this is the plan in action: small group instruction at their level, individualized programs using technology, small group lessons working through their math at their own individual level, and this is social emotional small group counseling. And the cycle continues. So my reflection is that at School for the Highly Gifted, we operate from a principle of shoring up individual child's weaknesses. And when we hit every child's weakness, we usually hit our achievement and growth goals as a result. But I do think teachers would benefit from looking at the way the state calculates their ABCD rating. And so I think I'm going to pull in a little bit of that on our data planning days and just make sure that they're comfortable with that process as well. I also would like to do some staff celebrations, rewards, and use a combination of state achievement projection data, which is what I've given you in the Google files, as well as the map data that the teachers are comfortable with. Our relatively weak areas are single subject areas, science and writing, so we'll make sure that we're keeping an area on that and brainstorming ways to continue to improve in that area. There are shorter blocks in the instructional day, and so I'm sure that plays a role, so we'll have to talk about how we can integrate it more into our reading and math so that it won't feel like it's got less time. And our highest achievers can struggle to show growth on MAP, but we have noticed that they still show growth on STAR. So thank you for listening to this video, and let me know if you have any questions or if we need to meet in person.